Before things happened in Vegas, this was the happening place. The resorts of the Catskill Mountains. 100 miles from New York City, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, they attracted predominantly Jewish visitors, many of them immigrants. They came for the fresh air and the shows. There was lots of both. And the performers spoke their language, which was frequently Yiddish. The place became known as the Borscht Belt, and before long, big-name stars.
I feel great. I really feel wonderful. I just got back from a pleasure trip. I took my mother-in-law to the airport.
Like Milton Berle and George Burns, added the stages of big Catskills hotels to their list of must-stops. There was Grossinger's, Kutcher's, the Concord.
Concord was 3,000 people. Kutcher's was, say, 1,500 people. So you were paying to a lot of people.
And they were packed. I mean,
they were packed.
If you are of a certain age and from a certain area, chances are these scenes certainly look familiar. And you might even be familiar with Stewie Stone.
By applause, how many people still remember the Concord Hotel? Was that a great part of our life, the Catskills?
One of so many comedians who made names for themselves in the Borscht Belt.
You know, when we started, everybody did the same jokes. You would do a joke, they'd yell, "I heard it yesterday." You know, it was tough.
That hurts.
Oh, it hurts. And every comic did the same joke. You know, a woman goes to the hospital and says, "I want to see my husband." And they said, "He's dead." She says, "Give him an enema." She said, "It wouldn't help." She said, "It wouldn't hurt." Every comic did that joke.
I heard that joke.
The comics needed quick wits and thick skins. The audiences were not just tough.
My youngest son, he's named after my grandfather. We have a son named Grandpa.
They delivered their reviews with their feet.
The Concord was famous for having 4 doors in the back. Now, while you were on stage, if they didn't like you, they'd walk out in the middle of your act, and you'd see the door open, and the light would come in, like it was light from above. And then if they hated you, 2 doors would open. So that's how we judged an act. Say, how was the act? 4 doors. Man, it was the worst act in the world.
So how many doors did you average?
Oh, some nights I was a 1 door. Some nights I never was a 4 door.
The Borscht Belt style of humor was a kind of self-deprecating celebration of suffering.
I mean, the typical joke is a guy is hit by a car and he's laying in the street, and the guy walks over and puts a coat under his head, and he said, "Are you comfortable?" And the man looks up and says, "I make a living." It's almost a cultural feel, a rhythm. The Catskills was a rhythm. A joke was a rhythm. Take my wife, please. I make a living. The food here stinks, and the portions are so small. It's a rhythm.
Laugh if you want, but jokes like that built a lot of careers. Until it all changed. This is what much of the Borscht Belt looks like now. This ruin used to be the Concord. You remember, the place where Stewie Stone played before 3,000 people? Look at it now. All it is a memory. Almost all the great hotels are gone.
The 50s, the 60s, into the 70s were the busiest time for us.
Mark Kutcher owns the only surviving big hotel in the Catskills.
I was seeing the same people as guests and their children year after year who were here for 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Your sports commentator drove up to New York's Catskill Mountains to look in on tall timber.
In the golden years of the Borscht Belt, Kutcher's found a star or two without really trying. The hotel had a basketball team coached by Red Auerbach, the legendary coach of the Boston Celtics.
In 1954, a young basketball player out of Philadelphia, still in high school, Wilt Chamberlain, came to work for us as a bellhop.
They call him Wilt the Stilt, and playing against top college stars in summer competition, he's been averaging better than 30 points per game.
Of course, Red Auerbach made the new bellhop the new star of the Kutcher's basketball team.
Remember the name, Wilt Chamberlain.
They love to talk about history in the Catskills. But when the children and the grandchildren of the Borscht Belt's best customers discovered jet travel and Florida and Europe, the Catskills didn't seem so attractive.
People's habits as to how they vacationed changed, you know.
Forget about the future, be here now.
Nowadays, Kutcher's survives with the occasional big event like this. It's a weekend-long festival to promote legalized marijuana and another sign of changing times here.
We already are, you and me, psychically.
Of course, the humor that thrived here still fills theaters in other places.
So let us make you laugh.
This one off-Broadway. Same old jokes, same old audience. The group is lining up to see old Jews telling jokes. But seriously, folks, they love this stuff.
Kaplan is driving down the Long Island Expressway. A cop pulls him over and says, "Sir, do you realize your wife fell out of the car a mile back?" Kaplan says, "Thank God, I thought I was going deaf."
The jokes are unbelievably funny. It doesn't matter when they came, where they came from, they're just funny.
The producers of Old Jews Telling Jokes, Peter Gethers and Daniel Okrent, have bet that you don't have to be in the Borscht Belt to love the humor.
Of course, the last time I came home, I found my business partner in bed with my wife. I said, "Jake, I have to, but you?"
And this is a creative invention of the Borscht Belt in the 40s and 50s, and it doesn't exist, but the artistic output exists, and that's Borscht Belt humor.
Doctor, did you get the results?
Well, I'm afraid I have some bad news. I also have some very, very bad news. The bad news is that you only have 24 hours to live.
Oh my God, doctor, that's only the bad news. What could be worse than that?
I couldn't get a hold of you yesterday.
The jokes travel pretty well from the Catskills to off-Broadway, and the show is doing so well, it's going on the road.
I once dated a woman from New Jersey. Worst sex of my life.
What? What'd he say?
He said he knows you.
So basically, it's like Catskills, Schmatskills. You can tell the jokes without the buildings being there still.
You know, you don't need to be in Vienna to listen to Mozart.
That's the tradition.
Mozart and the Borscht Belt. It's an unlikely comparison. Mozart's work endures because he never wrote a bad piece. But the Borscht Belt endures despite the bad jokes, maybe because of the bad jokes.
They're gonna sell a talking doll of my mother. You pull the string and it says, "Again with the string"?